Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noy with Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. We are back with another episode. We're at episode 29, and it's April. Crazy how fast this year is going, but I have an awesome guest with me today. We're going to get into the world of recruiting and hiring and all the stuff that goes along with that, because that's still a hot topic with everything else going on in the workplace. So Katherine McCord, welcome to Speakeasy HR.
Thank you so much for having me. I have been very excited about doing this show with you today.
Yeah, I have connected with you through a mutual connection, and just
Mhm.
like a lot of the guests that I have had, and some coming up, it's kind of a network connection from another
Yeah.
connection. And so you and I didn't really know each other a whole lot until we connected recently, and I said, I'd love for you to come on, and what do you want to talk about? And so you had an awesome topic. And so I think a lot of people that will watch live will learn from you. Obviously, people listening on demand will also learn. But we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you are watching, please chime in, ask questions along the way. We'll get to them. But my name is David Noe. I started this podcast in July of 24, and it's been an absolute blast to have people as guests. So I've got a new blog out this week. If you go to speakeasyhr.com, it is all about patience. Everybody needs patience in their lives. So if you want to read that, it's a week word of the week blog. Go out to speakeasyhr.com and you can download that. You can subscribe and get it in your inbox every Monday. So I'm going to be doing that all year long. So, Katherine,
Yep.
you are in the great state of Florida.
It's a state, and it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. The nature here is absolutely gorgeous, and there's wonderful food, and it's never boring.
Yeah. Well,
That's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I know you deal with some weather related issues along the way, but right
Yeah.
now I live in Kentucky, and my gosh, the amount of rain we got. I have some friends in the bourbon industry, as a lot of people in the state, that's what their job is within the bourbon
Yeah.
industry. And these
Yeah.
distilleries are just, I've seen some of the videos, and even the river between Cincinnati and Kentucky, like, oh my gosh, it's crazy how much rain we got. So everybody out there, I'm definitely thinking of everybody going through the crazy rain that we've had and the flooding, and it's going to be
Weather's been crazy, period. Like my family back in Texas, they're having like 30-degree weather right now. I'm like,
oh my
what?
gosh, yeah,
Insane. That's certifiably insane.
yeah,
But it is funny though, because with everything that's just going on for everybody right now, and the job market's so crazy and all of that, it is so interesting still to realize how much people do still focus on just the basic things of life, right? Like the weather and just, and all that kind of stuff. It always tickles me. Still right now to this day, like when I ask people how they are, weather is one of the first things that comes out of their
yeah,
mouths,
yeah,
which I think is so funny. Yeah.
yeah. And
Let's hear it.
when I was with a previous company, it was in the construction roofing business, and so I needed to know what the weather was like, because I needed to know if
Yeah.
our crews were working or not. And year round, we had weather, obviously storms, snow, ice. So definitely kept up with the weather way more than I do now, because it doesn't really impact my job as much. But
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
we're gonna play a fun game coming up, world famous envelope icebreaker game, just so everyone can learn a little
Oh.
bit about you, Katherine, if they do not know you. But before we get to that, if you just want to kind of tell everybody about your background and what you've been up to, and just some of the things that you've been working on recently, and what your focus is.
Yeah. So I have been in HR consulting and contracting specifically for about 12 years now. Before that, I did it for startup and medium-sized businesses. I've been doing it for a long time. Absolutely love what I do. I also speak internationally and teach internationally. I'm asked to speak by organizations from London School of Business to United Nations delegate events, to different governments, to company events, to SHRM, and all those groups, right, to come in and teach and speak on the things that I do. I also invented the first ever anti-bias applicant tracking system that fired the resume, which is now going to be absorbed by another HR tech
Very
product.
cool.
And yeah, that was freaking cool. And I don't have a tech background, by the way. So that was really interesting, inventing a tech. I was like, you know what? I can do it. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
And I
why
just
not?
got somebody who could code much better than me, and got it done. And it won Innovation of the Year at one summit, and then it was recognized at Web Summit as well, which is the largest tech convention in the world.
Very cool.
And yeah, and it's been fun. So that's me. And I was the little girl. I was very weird. I played HR as a kid. Like I was obsessed. It's not a joke. Like people always think I'm kidding. I'm like, oh no, no, there are people that can verify this. I would set up like business meetings and interviews and employee relations. I fired my mother when I was 6 years old.
No, you
Not as
did
my
not.
mother, but as my employee, right? She was pretending to be my employee and I fired
Oh
her.
my gosh.
And because she was in HR, she then critiqued me and told me how to do it better next time. And then I tried again later and so on and so
Okay.
forth. Yeah.
See, I was gonna say that usually isn't something that you watch on TV or like see. So I was gonna ask like what made you want to do that, but it sounds like your mom was in HR and
She was, and that had something to do with it. But
yeah.
honestly, I loved it as a kid, loved it as a teen. For some reason, fought against it for a few years after that. Like my professional, you get to be an older teenager and you think you know everything, right?
Oh yeah.
And fought against it for a bit, but then ended up right back here because I love the strategy, I love the compliance, I love everything about HR except for payroll, which is super boring. But everything
We'll do that.
I know that's
You're
why
good.
yeah,
You're
that's
good.
why I'm a big fan of your company. That's the part I don't want to do. That's for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And other people love it, but not me. That's
Yeah.
just the one thing I can't stand.
Well, I have not had many guests that have said they grew up acting like they were in HR and playing as a young
True.
child doing
It's
HR
true.
things. But here
Yeah,
we are, and now
here we
you're
are.
doing it for a living and you're having fun with it. So that's great. Well, congrats
Yeah.
on all the success.
Thank
I think
you.
again,
Thank you.
you are bringing a wealth of knowledge in this industry and or in this part of HR. So
Mhm.
obviously, I wanna learn from you and pick your brain. I've got
Please.
questions for you, but obviously, if anybody is watching, throw out a question in the chat, and we want to get
And
to that.
nothing is off limits.
Nothing is
Nothing.
off
Just
limits.
ask
You hear that,
anything
people?
you want to ask, and I'll answer it.
Nothing. Better watch what you ask for. You better
Maybe
watch.
workplace appropriate. I don't know. But no,
Well,
no, but
yeah.
really, just
Well,
anything that you want to know, just feel free to ask.
I'll definitely moderate because this is a one man show here. So, um, well, I have a few icebreaker questions that I want to ask.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let's do it.
flip this over to the envelope icebreaker intro and see if it works, and we'll get to it. Didn't work too well. Sometimes I have
Kind of
problems.
did it. It did it.
It's all right. All right. I've got just 15 envelopes, 1 through 15. Sorry, I can't move them around very well.
I got it. I
If you
can see.
if you have a number 1 through 15, what do you got? What
8.
are you picking? 8. All right, number 8. Number 8. I'm curious. I forget what's in here.
I don't know.
All right, what is your favorite TV show?
Oh, that's like impossible. It's like what genre? Um,
Maybe like right now. Like what's your favorite TV show right now?
uh, well, right now I'm the only thing I'm really watching. I kind of do like binge watching. That's kind of my
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm super into the Jack Ryan series right now, and it's
Okay.
really good.
Okay.
And the acting in it's phenomenal. And yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, that's my number one show right now.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of sports. My kids love to watch,
Sports too. Yeah.
even golf. Obviously, it's the Masters week, so everyone will be tuning into the Masters. But yeah, there's some funny shows.
Everyone? No, not me.
Okay, not everyone. Not everyone. People that enjoy
I
golf
can't.
and
I can't do golf. I can't. I'm like if I could
you live
play
in
it just
Florida,
me
right?
and
Everyone plays golf in Florida.
no, I like so hockey, soccer, and football.
Okay.
Um
Okay. That's
and
fine.
and my by the way, so since you just asked about TV shows, my favorite football TV show is called Peyton's Places, where Peyton Manning takes you around the country and teaches you about football based on location, and it's super cool.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a big hockey fan. I grew up in Michigan.
My
Obviously,
dog's name
Red
is
Wings.
Yager after Yamir Yager.
See? And then Ovechkin just got most goals ever by a player, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't think
But he'll
anyone would.
never beat Gretzky though in overall points because of all the
Yeah.
assists.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's just not going to happen. But he did
Yeah.
get most goals.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
cool.
So that's fun to see. Hockey's funny because like since I don't know when it started getting popular in Florida when the Panthers started winning, but like man, it's before that. I mean,
Yes.
nobody really
Yeah.
knew about hockey down there, right? It was kind of a
Yeah.
sport that
Nobody
no one.
cared, and now everyone cares because
Yeah.
the Lightning did great, and the Panthers did
Yeah.
great. Like so
Yeah.
now Florida's just all in with this
Yeah.
hockey business. Yeah.
Yeah. And Vegas. I mean, Las
And
Vegas has, you
Vegas
know what
is
I mean?
nuts about it, man. They are
Crazy.
so super. They got their team killed it like right off the bat. And so now they're like just they're super fans, which is so very Vegas of them. But
I mean,
yeah.
anything you can bet on, I'm sure when it comes to sports, people either get bored of one sport and then they move to the next. And so,
Not me,
all right,
fan for life.
there you go. All right, one more. What number you got?
Um, let's do 2.
2. Number 2 is,
I like that you show it like I'm gonna disbelieve you, like you picked
yeah,
a
I just
different
want to make sure you know that I'm actually picking the right one. You have to pick a walk-up song. What would it be and why?
Oh, that's easy. No, I've actually used this. So
Oh, there you go.
I use the song Fighter by Sumo Psycho. They are a semi
Fire.
heavy metal, semi pop Canadian
Okay.
band. And the song just is great. It just gets you pumped up. And it's, and it's talking about how, you're ready, like you're there and you're going to go the distance basically. It's kind of, so I really like it. That's my definite walkout song.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, if you haven't been to like a little league baseball game lately, the young kids have it now. Like it's crazy.
Oh, God.
Like
Wow.
5th, 6th grade, there's a parent that will be in charge of the walk-up songs, and they have this huge speaker by the dugout, and every time someone walks up, there's a new song, and then you're at this tournament, a baseball tournament, and you're like within 4 or 5 baseball fields, and all day you just hear
That's
music
too
going.
much. That's
It's
too
like,
much.
I mean,
That's
my
ridiculous.
my son my son played a little bit, and now he's not playing baseball anymore. I don't miss it one bit, but
You're like, I'm
obviously
over it. It was too much.
parents that love it, it's like you have somebody dealing with the music, and then you got someone keeping track of the score online. There's an app that you have to like, keep track of every
Oh,
pitch and every strike and every out.
no.
So like you watching in Florida could watch the kids game on this app, and it's like real-time scoring. So
Like, can we just talk about that people need to relax? It's a way for kids to have fun. Like,
oh,
relax.
it's yeah, we could do a whole nother episode on that.
Whole other episode on
Um,
that topic.
oh well. I just got this fun coffee mug with my
Cute.
logo on it.
I
So
like
yeah,
it.
kind of
Very
stepping up
cool.
my game. I actually have stuff
You got to be branded. You have to be.
like that.
Yeah.
I got these
This is actually this crazy octopus guy here. That's actually my mascot.
mascot. You got an octopus for
Yeah.
a mascot?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, how'd you
because
pick
he's
it?
my Kraken. There's a whole story behind that, but he's my
Okay.
Kraken because
Okay.
that's him.
Okay.
He's my Titan because my brand is Titan, so he's the Kraken.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Mhm.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Well, before we get to your topic and everything we'll dive into, just a couple of words from our presenting sponsor, Payroll Partners, and then we'll get to it here. So I'll let you take a quick break for about 1 minute and 3 seconds, and then we'll jump into it.
Finding a new employee takes time and money. For one position on a single job board, you could easily spend a minimum of $5 to $10 a day advertising a job post. It's worth noting that the average time it takes to hire a new employee is 36 days. However, it can take longer than that. You could find yourself paying hundreds of dollars a month for a single job board. And if you're using multiple job boards for multiple positions, this could add up to thousands of dollars a month. There is a much simpler and more affordable way of finding the right candidate. At Payroll Partners, we offer an applicant tracking system to help manage your hiring process. Our ATS is customizable, allowing you to decide which days you want to run the job and when to close it so you don't break the bank. And this feature lets you e-blast your network, posting jobs on multiple boards at once, all managed in one location. Payroll Partners, elevating your payroll and HR experience.
Yeah. So if anybody is listening and is tired of their current systems for payroll, HR, applicant tracking, hiring, recruiting, all that fun jazz as you're trying to fill jobs that are open and you have, hiring managers down your neck trying to get, new people in the door, let us know if we can help. We have customized solutions for businesses of all sizes. So look us up, get in touch with me. Be glad to figure out what we can do to help. So anyway, we are jumping into this amazing topic that you're bringing to Speakeasy HR today. Katherine, it's ethics in hiring and effective interviewing. So when I came to you and I said, hey, I would love to have you on, let's pick a date. Let's get a topic. You brought this up and I said, let's do it, because I've had some people talk about hiring and it has not been this kind of focus. It's more about AI and things like that. I had Tim
Right.
Sackett. He was a great guest about AI
Yeah.
and so this is a little bit of a different topic. So what made you pick this topic when I asked?
So, TA is my first love. It is. Talent acquisition is my first love. And it's something that I've gotten very good at over the years. I don't mind saying that. And I've even gotten neuroscience and neuropsychology certifications to help me be better at it, because it's a people game, right? Like, you've got to understand. When I say game, I mean, that's who you're working with. That's your clients, or the
Right.
humans. And so really understanding people is very important, both for HR and for hiring.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of companies going backward in their in their human-centric focus. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, guys, I get that AI is here and AI is, real cute and all well and good, but we still need to be good at humaning, right? We still need to be good at the peopling aspect of this. And so that's really why I focused on this. And also, a lot of companies are saying that they want to do the right things, but are not putting the proper things in place. And I don't think that it's malintent. I think it's just lack of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does ethical hiring mean to you and why is it so important in today's workplace?
Well, first of all, integrity should always be paramount in your business practices and in your hiring, period. If they're not, your organization will fall apart. Trust me. It always happens. It may take a little longer for some than others, but it happens.
Yeah.
And you will lose out on great talent for not being showing ethics and integrity in your hiring. And a lot of times you don't even know it. So a lot of companies don't realize that somebody is going through their application process, get to a certain question and go, ew. And then they just back out all the way and they don't realize what they've just missed out on. Right.
Right.
Um, and so it happens all the time. And then the other aspect is that people don't always put a lot of stock into what going through the job search, especially right now in this absolutely unparalleled job market, um, what that's like for the candidate. And
Yeah.
so the extra stress, and there can actually be an actual biological trauma response to the job market right now because it's so overwhelming. And we're having to search in ways that we've never searched before. We're having to hire in ways that we've never hired before because of the mass influx of candidates, right? And so taking this time to make sure that everybody, both the recruiter side and the hiring team side and the candidate side, is healthy is also very important.
Yeah. What would be a question if I was going through a job posting and I was applying for one of your jobs? What would be maybe a couple of questions that you've heard about that people are just like, oh, like I'm not a
I've
fan
seen
of
some of
this.
them. So I get out there and I actually do the research. I'm like, all right, let's go through the job applications. Like, I want to see this.
Yeah.
One of the ones that just sets me off right now, and I'm just like, why? Why would you ever even ask this question? Is companies, and please keep in mind that this is not part of the EEO survey. Okay, so the
Right.
EEO survey is, for anybody who does not know, is a government form that goes into a black hole and no one ever sees it. It's used for reporting and compliance. Okay, the hiring team does not see it. So
Right.
not in that, in the actual application that someone's going to read, they're asking people's sexuality. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're going to get sued because it is still against the EEO to do that, the EEO law to do that. Number two, just ew. And I always think of my friend Sydney Ware, who says, if you can say, if somebody could say to you, I don't know you like that, don't put it in an application.
Right. Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's super weird and awkward. Another one that's very odd that's really making a lot of people back out is asking financial information. That's become new. Yes, companies are asking your financial information, and I don't mean like what's your salary requirement. That's not what I'm asking. I've seen a couple of applications where they're saying, "Are you current on your taxes? Are you current?" I'm like, and these are not government, because you'll see that sometimes with government jobs, right? This is not for government jobs.
Okay.
And while it's not illegal, it's still tacky.
Yeah. Right.
But another one too is just asking interview questions. The interview is the next step.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is
Exactly.
just the application. This is for
Right.
the meat and potatoes. That stuff comes later. And one of the main reasons that people back out, and I've done the legwork on this, to really understand what's going on. And almost to a person, the number one thing people say when asked, God, myself or someone else, why are you backing out when they ask interview questions, is it shows a lack of respect. It shows that they don't value my time,
Right.
because it's not a two-way street. And that's the difference, is the people that we're going to need to answer these questions anyway. Yeah, but otherwise it's a two-way street, and you can respond to me and I can ask my questions. And it just shows a lot more respect and a lot more of a collaborative mindset to wait for the interview. So one of the main things I'm telling companies right now is, please do not ask interview questions in the application. Just have a regular application and then schedule the interview.
So if someone were to ask a question, which
Mhm.
you're saying don't ask questions, but if they wanted to ask like one or two questions, like what would be some that they would want to ask about, like, are you okay coming into the office to work, or like about work environment? Like,
Oh, and I don't count those, by the way. That's not what I mean by
okay,
interview questions. I mean things like, tell me a time when you built this program out. That's an interview question. Like,
right, right,
like, wait on that. But it's things like, is this schedule okay with you? Yes, please ask that, because
yeah,
sometimes things get, even if you put it in the job description, they may not have seen it. People are
right,
going through, they have to apply to hundreds to thousands of jobs just to land one. So they're probably not reading every single word of your job description, to be honest with you. So just making sure that those main points are hit. Like, do you have, it's kind of like the citizenship question, right? Like, are you able to work in this country without sponsorship? That's
right,
okay.
right,
Are you able to, are you able to work this schedule? That's great. Those kinds of questions make sense. Even things like asking, does this salary range work for you? Now, please have
right.
posted your salary range in the job description. That's another very big one right now for job seekers, and a matter of integrity. But so
So
put that.
post the pay range.
Post the pay. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. There's even a whole Indeed commercial about this, which cracked me up no end, that Indeed put out a commercial shaming companies for this. Um, but it's true. So you want to post the range. Now, you don't have to give like a salary, but have a range up
Right.
there so that you all know you're on the same page, because nothing's more aggravating than getting through several interviews and then they're like, oh, well, we're only paying 50,000 and you want 100,000. Like, you know what your budget is, just put it out there, and
Right.
then see. And I hear the argument a lot, well, they're always going to ask for the top end. No, they won't, especially not in this job market. They are more likely to underprice themselves because they're trying to get an interview with you.
Yeah. Right.
So, and also remember that you're not locked into that. And just because somebody says this is what I want doesn't mean that's what you have to offer, right? So there's really not a downside. It just kind of lets you know, does this work? And the way I typically like to ask that question is, does our posted salary range of XYZ work for you?
How
Because then
wide
you know
can
that you're
that
aligned.
be? How wide can that be, you think? Because
Depending on the job level, if you're looking, the way I kind of break it up is, if you're looking in like the low hourly type
yeah,
stuff, you want to keep it within about 10 to 20%. If you're into like executive level type stuff, it can be bigger. I've seen ranges posted from 200 to 300,000. That's a reasonable
right,
range for an
right.
executive.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on the role, but in general, try to keep it within about 20% difference in
Yeah.
the two.
I
Yeah.
think some companies are afraid because they know their current employees might look at that and be like, if it's like something different and that it kind of gets them
You
frustrated,
know
they
what I
might
have to
be
say
like,
about that? Why aren't you paying them what the job's worth?
that's what
Like,
I
we
say.
need to have a separate conversation
That's
about
that's
this.
a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
Being fair,
we've missed the mark on something at this point.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, fair and transparent with paying people.
Yes. And now the other way that you can do it too, because I did have an HR person one time ask me, she said, I don't make that decision. I can't give more pay to them. So what do I do? And so I said, so start with what you're paying them as the bottom end of the range
Yes,
and then go up. So that way they at least know that they're in range of because that is in your range, right? So
right,
just kind of go from that. Yeah.
right. So how can organizations ensure fairness and consistency in interviews across different candidates?
Right. So number one, there is a misconception that in order to have a fair or inclusive or however you want, it's consistent interview, that all interviews need to be identical. In fact, it's completely counterproductive. Don't do that. People communicate in different ways.
Right,
So you want to balance being flexible with being consistent. So keep everything mission focused, right? First of all, what is the mission of this role?
right,
That's el numero uno. And everything needs to tie into, can you do this role? How we get there, whatever. But can you do it? And as you're asking questions, have different versions of those questions available. Because people communicate differently and they will hear things differently. So if you ask a question one way and it doesn't seem like it lands the way that you wanted it to, have that other version ready and go. Also, if somebody is visual and you're doing a Zoom interview, Google Meets, Teams, whatever, post it in the comments, have a little ticker go across, something like that with the question on it. Because visual people, especially if it's a more complex question,
yeah,
that may help them. And they're in a stressed state of mind. So they're not their regular self for the interview, right? They're more stressed out. So be flexible, right? Have different flexible, let the conversation flow. Don't read down a list of questions. There is nothing more irritating to a candidate than that. It feels very canned. It makes it seem like you're not very professional. Just don't do that. Just practice your interviewing, know what you need to know. And what I tell people to do instead is have up the list of criteria that you need met that have objective scoring systems. So this is the information that I need to know, right? How I get that information, maybe they just tell me in their intro because they talk a lot,
yeah,
right? And I get 90% of this, and then we can just kind
yeah.
of talk about other stuff. But have the objective criteria and just write down your note and get your notes, type them out, whatever you're going to do. But make sure you get that information and do that instead of having a particular list of questions. It makes it a lot less awkward. But have an objective scoring system, not subjective, objective. And then another very big one that I'm telling a lot of companies right now, because they're just really missing the boat, and they don't mean to, again, is to start the interview by decompressing the candidate's stress. And this is more on the recruiter side, not so much the hiring team,
Yeah.
by telling the candidate everything that they want to know about the role. I
Yeah.
start every interview and the first I tell them the layout of the interview, and then I tell them all the things. I tell them about the team, the benefits, the pay, the projects, how this role came open, all the things that I think they might ask me. And then I say, are there any other questions? And sometimes they have them, but a lot of times they don't. And I've had countless candidates. I mean, I can't even tell you how many at this point go, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I feel so much calmer now. I'm ready for this interview.
Yeah.
It just decompresses them because they're sitting there trying to remember all these things that matter to them. Well, if you take those worries away, now they can just focus on what you're doing and they're set up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm involved in our hiring. So I'm interviewing as we have jobs open, and I'm talking to interview, in setting up phone interviews. We do phone interviews, in-person interviews, right? And I still get people that don't take the call. They don't respond to an email. Like
Yeah.
it's still happening,
Yeah.
and it's upsetting to me and frustrated. It frustrates me that, they're emailing me back about, hey, here's when I'm available for an interview. And then I tell them,
Mhm.
hey, it's going to be this date, this time. And then, so like, are you still hearing that's happening to people? They're
Oh
just,
yeah. Oh
right.
yeah. Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. And there's
like,
only so much that you can do about it.
right.
And so I want to tell people out there, if you're experiencing that, it may not be you. Okay. I'm going to tell you a few things to
Not
do
me.
to make sure it's not you, right? but, but it may not be you. So a lot of times that has to do with they've gotten another job and they're too nervous to tell you. Sometimes they just decided it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes something else comes up and they just don't do it. And some people, and especially until they've been in the job market for a while, a lot of people still think that they're going to get a job like that. And that's just not the market. Right now, it is taking 6 to 8 months for the average professional to find a new job.
Say that again.
6
6 to 8
to
months.
8 months for the average professional to find a new job.
Wow.
So it's horrible out there. And also some of it's that they still think that they control the market like they did for like candidates did for a bit, right? But that's not it. So don't necessarily feel like it's you, but a few things that you can do to help prevent that. And I do this through my calendar system. I know Teams does it, a few others do it. You can set reminders to go out to them of, hey,
Yeah.
and people are like, well, they should be organized. Well, not every candidate's going to have that ability, and sometimes you don't need them to, right? Like
Right.
that's not what you're hiring them to do.
Right.
Some
Right.
people are also not good with technology. So for instance, my husband recruits in the medical profession, and a lot of the particular people that he recruits, technology is not their thing. so so like if you send them a calendar invite, they're like, I don't know what this is. Like, what
Right.
am I supposed to do with
Oh my
this?
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just kind of depends on what you're hiring for. So
Right.
send out reminders in a way that will make sense to them. Text. I like to do text and email both that
Yeah.
go out to them. And also staying in touch with them, giving them a little bit more info. And again, you can pre-program all of this. Like,
Yeah.
oh, here's a new email about how awesome we are as a company, like that kind of thing. But that's about all you could do. Past that,
Right.
it's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, so if you are watching, please chime in. We do have a question that came in from Zaya, I believe is how you pronounce it. If I didn't pronounce that right, I apologize. She said, "Is it okay to skip questions with the recruiter and save them for the hiring team?"
I think, okay, and please, commenter, please feel free to hop in if I do not answer this the way that you mean it. So I am taking that to mean I have questions that I think are more relevant for the hiring team, and they're the correct ones to answer, not the recruiter. Yes, please tell them. You can also ask the recruiter and say, hey, just let me know if this is for you or not,
Right.
because they may know, they may not. But no, it is absolutely okay to save some questions for the hiring team.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There are definitely times where someone asks me a great question, and I said, usually if I don't know the right answer, or if I think it's a good question to ask in the, in-person interview, I say, hey, if you get asked to come into the office and meet with our hiring manager, that's a great question for them. So if you just want to make a note to ask that if you come in for the next interview. Yeah.
Right. 100%. Yes. And so, and it is still good, by the way, to let them know, because they will prep the hiring team about your question. So it's not
Yeah.
the worst idea to let them know, but there's also nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it.
Yeah. Do you know what question I tell people about interviewing and asking good questions when they are interviewing for a job?
What?
I never hear people ask in an interview when I'm interviewing people, it's who is my manager and what's their management style? I never hear that
That's a
question.
great question. Yeah.
I
That's a
never
great
hear it
question.
because I've not asked it in the past, and now that like I try to tell and promote people to ask that question, because you might love the company. Like if you want to
Yeah.
come work for us, you might love our company. But
But what about that person? Yeah.
if you come in and you can't stand the manager, like I know a lot of people leave jobs because of the manager, right? Like
Mhm. And even if
it's
they're a good
really
manager, maybe it's just not a good alignment. Now, if you're a really
right,
great manager, you can kind of work with anybody. But
right,
yeah, that's a good question. Another one too that I think a lot of people miss is to get the deliverables that are expected in the first like 90 days. What are you expecting of this person when they come in for the first 60 or 90 days? What are
right.
you needing done right away so that you can really kind of understand that and address that?
Yeah. Zaya had mentioned, do the interviews think that candidates are desperate? I want some inside tea.
I want some inside tea. That is lovely. And I love that you said the tea, because I say it all the time is let me give you the tea. So as a Southern woman, everything for me revolves around tea. So don't laugh at me, David. It's just true.
Tea sounds good right now. I'm drinking
So
water.
yes,
I wish
they
I had
do.
something other than tea, right?
See, yeah, you need some tea right now. It's like just
I
good,
got
sweet
bourbon.
Southern
I got
tea.
bourbon in the background. So
Never a bad
now
way
we're
to
talking.
spice your tea. So So no, really, a lot of them do. A lot of them do, and especially right now because a lot of times it's true, and that's very unfortunate. But right now, because the job market is so very saturated for most roles, there is that perception and there is that mentality, and so companies are taking advantage of it. They are going away from moving through interview processes in a timely manner. They're going away from giving a hoot what makes you comfortable, and they are moving into us. And you're really feeling that when you look at these applications, when you look at how they're asking questions in interviews, their expectations, that kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. So yes, that absolutely is a thing.
Yeah.
It is.
So how do
And I
you
want to say
balance?
too. So, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, keep going.
Oh no, I was going to say too. So this is another thing that I've started noticing is that a lot of companies are misusing AI, and I'm picking right now to address this because I think that sometimes what candidates are seeing is actually because of misuse of AI in hiring. So AI is wonderful, and I've spent a lot of time with people that create it, and I've gone to the tech conventions. I played around with it. I have broken a few hearts of people who thought they had great products, and I pointed out a lot of holes. But, and other ones I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This, little or no notes for you. So AI is still learning and it's still growing
Yep.
and it cannot do what a human mind can do.
Right.
So using it for things like answering candidates very basic questions, kind of like a virtual assistant kind of thing, is very helpful. Using it to help schedule appointments is very helpful. Using it even to create interview prep on both sides can be very helpful.
Right.
Right, it has its purpose. What it cannot effectively do right now, I might get a look from you for this, I don't know, is it cannot scan resumes effectively. Can't do it.
Yeah.
It cannot. And and so one of the things that I tell a lot of candidates is if a company uses AI to filter resumes, there will be an option where you can opt out in the application process. So pay attention and click opt out
There you go.
so that a human being has to look at it. Because right now AI is not there yet. It may be one day. That's
Right.
definitely possible. But
Right.
right now, that's not a thing.
So what about, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. And so if people are applying for jobs, make sure to check that out when you're
Yeah.
going through the application process. What about if you go select 5 people to bring in the office? You've got all your notes, you've got their resume, you've got the qualifications for the job. You take all that data and you spit it into AI and you say, rank
Right.
these people from 1 to 10. And I know which is my potential top applicant, right? Like I know
Yeah.
that Susie is the top applicant in my mind. I interviewed her on the phone, I interviewed her in person. And so now I'm trying to help that hiring manager say, all right, here's what I think based on what
Hmm.
we know about these 5 people. Who's certified, who's not, who has
Right.
experience, who doesn't, who has a college education if that's required or not. Like all of the things. And then you put it in, and then it's like pros, cons, and then it ranks from 1 to 10.
Hmm.
Is that something that you think people can use to be effective when narrowing it down to a select person out of like 5?
If you can't narrow it down yourself, come attend one of my interviewing classes because that's where we're at.
That's
In all
very good.
sincerity, and I don't even mean that
Right.
rudely. It means that you don't
Right.
yet have the skills to understand what hiring is and how to accomplish it.
Right.
Um, Now, I have seen people, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I have seen some people before they interview get 5 or 6, however many resumes, right, and put them in and have that help organize who has the most of the meat and potato
Got it.
qualifications.
Right.
That's helpful, right?
Right.
And especially
Yeah.
depending on how your brain works, that may be a great way to line up some resumes. In other words, I already have selected them. I know this is who I want. Now just pull out who has what technologies, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, that it can be used for. But again, it can't detect the human element. And and resumes are not a complete document. They don't have all the information, right? And even
Right.
our notes won't have all the information. So really, well, maybe my notes. I live crazy notes like for my hiring teams. They get like a whole submittal like spiel about it and
Yeah.
lining them up to the criteria and all that. But um it's not an effective way to find a human.
Right.
When you're narrowing it down, uh, you start, it should, first of all, not everybody should make it all the way through the process. So at each stage, somebody should be getting axed, right? The recruiter should be axing some folks. The first stage should be axed. And then by the time we get to last one, it should be down to one or two people. And so you're really only making the choice between one or two people.
Right.
And so then, unless of course you have multiple hires, then maybe you have more. But for one position, one or two people, and then it's just, you stop, and I always bring them back to the mission, and I say, what is the mission of this role? And they say it back to me, because we would have established that before we started. I said, now who can best complete that mission? And they always got it. They, like, when I put it back to them that way about the mission, they always know who it is. And I'm like, there you go. All right, now we have our hire.
There you go.
That's it.
That's great. So from your experience, what are some best practices for creating an ethical and inclusive interview process that we haven't brought up already?
And I like to clarify what I mean when I say inclusion, right? So inclusion is for everybody, right? So there's no like this group over this group. It's for literally everyone. And an inclusive hiring process just means that it is going to be practical for everyone and how their different learning style and their different communication style functions. Okay. That's it. Very simple. And everyone benefits from this. So creating that process, first of all, mission alignment is key. Create the mission of that position, and then everything else just kind of falls into place, and everything comes back to that mission. Yeah. So start with that. Then you want to be flexible. Again, having things like multiple questions, different interview styles. So when people book an appointment with me, you'll always see that there's different styles. Like, do you want phone? Do you want Zoom? Do you want a Google Meets? Whatever the technology is that is most convenient for them. Because again, I'm in the position of, I have my job. I'm trying to make this other person feel comfortable, right? And so I want to make sure that they're set up for success. And as a recruiter, especially, that's our job, is to set them up for success, right? And so, having those flexible options, make accommodation standard options. This is actually great across HR and the whole company anyway, but I do it even for interviewing. And so there's a list of things that I offer, such as I do camera off meetings. I'll have on captions so that they can read what I'm saying. And even just things like note takers, that type of thing. Here are some different things that I offer. And here's a fill in the blank. Just let me know whatever's going to make you comfortable. Right. Yeah. And people tell me all different kinds of things, and they'll say, just think nothing, but thank you so much for asking. Right. But it makes people feel welcome. Right. It's just like if you're having someone over to your home, you're not just going to tell them what they're eating for dinner. What would you like me to make for dinner with you coming over? Right. It's kind of like that. How are we going to work this together? So have those what I call standard accommodations, and just kind of go from there, and remember to make promises and keep them. So it's Monday. I'm going to get you feedback by you're going to hear from me again by Thursday. And I never say I'm going to get you feedback by then, because we both know those hiring managers will just take forever, but you will hear from me by Thursday. And I have that reminder set on my calendar, email so-and-so, text so-and-so, and I contact them and I let them know, so that they are never in the dark. Yeah. And so just, keeping that flow, keeping everything simple, and however they tell me they like their communication, that's how they get it. So if they want a phone call, if they want to text, if they want to email, I do my very best to honor those communication styles. So just be flexible. And I tell everybody, just think like a Southerner, just be welcoming, just be accommodating, right? I think Southerners are great. So I just be welcoming, be accommodating, and be thoughtful of the other person, and you'll knock it out every time. And aside from that, don't have 500 interviews, please, for things that don't require it. Like if you're hiring a C-level executive and you want to have 7 interviews, knock yourself out. Right. Anything else should not have 7 interviews. That's not the same. Condense them, be practical, that kind of thing. But do be mindful of that process.
So you're saying 6 to 8 months right now, it's taking people to find a job. What about filling a job? So if someone posts a job today, April 7th, 2025, are they filling them in 30 days mostly, or is it?
They could. I will tell you, and to this day, I have seen nothing to contradict this. The vast majority of the time, and now in my personal experience, I can give you the exact number, which is 100%. But that's not true for everybody else. And when I've run recruiting teams that had other people, our stats were at 92% for this. So I'm just going to use that stat. 92% of the time, in my experience, it is the hiring team, not the recruiting team, that's the issue with that. It's, I'm too busy to hire. So,
Right.
so as long as we're not doing that, because you'll get the applicants like that, and your recruiter should be doing active sourcing.
Yep.
Okay. My personal time to fill is 2.5 weeks or less. I just filled a rush job in literally 48 hours. That was an upper level IT position. Okay. So, so there is literally no excuse for your job to just be sitting open. There's
So
not.
if anyone needs help with hiring,
Also reach out to Catherine. Catherine's got you. But in all sincerity, you can fill jobs within a couple of weeks if you have a good process. So have a good process and be committed. If your hiring team says, and one of the things I tell recruiters to do right off the bat is get their availability up front and or access to their calendar so that you can schedule the next interviews.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So have that stuff planned, because if you have that, you can fill your jobs in a couple of weeks. There is absolutely no reason not to.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some risks, both legal and cultural, of cutting ethical corners during recruiting?
So legal, you can get sued into oblivion. You can get fines. You can get government sanctions for certain things. So it just depends, of course, on what you're doing. But don't give your lawyers a heart attack, please, people. Like, don't give your HR people heart attacks. And I will say this too, make sure someone who understands employment law, not just somebody who works in HR recruiting, but somebody who very specifically understands employment law, is reviewing your application and your application process. Because even just leaving a question on for one job that is not relevant can get you in a world of trouble. So for instance, I've been seeing jobs for professional, like operations and HR, that kind of thing, that say, do you have a valid driver's license? Well, that is not a requirement. And so that can actually get you into problems when it comes to ADA law, which is, for disabilities. So you need to be careful. Have someone who actually really understands that law reviewing your process. That's very important. Ethically and culturally, let me tell you that candidates still expect better of you. Even if they are, quote, desperate, they expect better. And if you do not give them better, they will never quit looking. You want to know how I know? Because I come along and I steal them right out from under your sorry little nose.
There you go.
I'm not kidding. I tell people all the time, I get some of my best hires because the last guy did a bad job hiring them. Not even once they're on board, hiring them, because it sets a bad tone.
Right.
And so culturally, just so you know, people still have high expectations of you. Yeah.
Well, and that's another question that came from, hopefully I'm saying her name right, Zaya.
Yes.
How do the companies cope with semi-professional recruiters?
That is the best question of life. I love that she just flat out label people. I don't know your pronouns. Sorry. I love that this commenter just flat out said semi-professional. Like, some of them suck. Like, let's just talk about it.
It takes me back to one of the first jobs in HR I got. Well, I was in my first HR job. I was looking for my next HR job. And I remember being in the car taking a phone interview from this company. And they asked me questions and they were okay. Right. And then they brought me in for a next interview. They asked me the same exact questions in both interviews, literally almost the same exact questions. And I think they did it. I think they did it to see if I would change my answers.
You know what I think it is? I think that they honestly just don't have a process. And so it just ends up being identical. Like, I swear, I have seen the weirdest things that happen. But so semi-professional so first of all, yes, make sure that each stage of the interview process is different. Companies, each stage should have different questions, different process, get different information. Each, like I said, the hire process has a mission. Each interview should have a separate mission that is different from the last.
Right.
Semi-professional recruiters, I love that, because nobody complains more about poor recruiting than me, and people who don't take it seriously than me. And companies, what they should be doing is trying to train people, and if that doesn't work, firing them. That's what they should be doing. But because not everybody belongs in recruiting. It's just true. Just like with any other job, not everybody belongs in recruiting. Not
Right.
everybody will do it well. So that's what they should be doing. Other than that, though, they just knit and grit it. I see it all the time. These companies get these, especially in enterprise level. Now, not so much with your small to mids. They'll kind of call BS and be like, "No, I need somebody that'll actually do the job," because they're not big enough to compensate for that.
Yeah.
But the enterprise level guys, they'll just truck along with that same person who's just not doing a very good job. And some of it is that they buy into whatever the excuse is of that person, sometimes it's that they don't know better, so but they'll just kind of keep trucking along and just not do anything to make it better. So what I'll tell you is, as a candidate, what you can do is to send feedback, not ugly feedback, but just to go, and nothing, I recommend not attacking the individual unless they did something particularly grievous, like maybe violating a law or something like that. Or if they ghost you, feel free to include that in your feedback. But otherwise, just keep it general. Like, hey, as a candidate, this was the process. And just so you know, this could make it better. Right. And just give that information so that the company has feedback, because a lot of candidates don't give feedback. You're just kind of left in the wind, even when you ask for it. So give that candidate or give that feedback, and not just to the recruiter, find another avenue as well to HR and that type of thing to give feedback to them.
Right. What I find comical, and this is just from my experience, is that when you're interviewing somebody and it's more of an HR job, right?
Mhm.
Like, they know how to interview. They do it for a job, but they're so bad at it. Like, it's unbelievable. I'm just like, I get off a phone interview and I'm just like, wow, I wonder what they're like on the other side. Like, how do they interview people at their job? Because they're trying to leave the company that they're at in an HR job that does recruiting, and then they're coming to me and they're trying to come and work for us, and I'm interviewing them. I'm like,
What is this? This is
you
so
are
weird.
not a good interviewer, like, at all. It's so interesting to me. I'm
It
just like,
is.
you didn't have good questions to ask me. You didn't have, like,
Yeah.
I know when people are prepared and when they're not. And, like,
Right.
some of these people just,
Right.
it
I will
was
tell
kind of
you,
like,
most of the recruiters that I have worked with under me, I brought in and I trained myself. And so they didn't have experience. And so I didn't
yeah,
expect them to be good at it. Right. The few that I brought in that that did have experience, they were impressive. Now, maybe they weren't like the best interview, but I could tell they knew their stuff. Right. Like we had a good conversation. And when I'm interviewing a recruiter, that's all it is a conversation, because I'm going to know real quick,
right,
real quick, if I can work with you. But I always tell people too, that brings up another good point. Stop expecting people to be good at interviewing, please. That is not what you're hiring them to do, unless you're hiring them to be an HR recruiting. That is not their job. Here are the three categories of people that I want to be good at interviewing. Okay. HR should be at least okay at it. Like, you should be at least passable.
right,
Recruiters, you should be at least passable. Like, if you're leaving me with a lot of questions, that's probably not the best thing. Sales guys or sales folks should be good at interviewing, okay? Because it's sales. And if you
right,
can't sell yourself, I'm not buying that you can sell anything else, right? So now there are different types of salespeople, right? So the interview could look different. I don't need everybody to be a shark type sales guy, right?
right,
But you should be selling yourself to me. So those are the only three people. Outside of that, who cares if they're good at interviewing? I don't care if you can write a resume. It
right,
needs to be, basically okay, right? But
right,
it doesn't need to be great. And I don't care if you're good at interviewing, because that's not what I'm hiring you to do.
yeah,
I'm hiring you to do the thing. And that kind of leads me back to, again, have a conversation as your interview and talk to them about what they're good at, and the things, and let them lead it, because that will set them up for success. Because if I'm sitting here asking all the things I think that you should know, but that's not my expertise,
right,
and that's not what matters. It's not how do you carry on this conversation, it's can you do this job.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Feedback. Like let's focus on the thing, right? I will not tell you how many hiring managers have said, I can't hire them, they weren't a good interview. I said, who cares? Can they do the job? Like, what?
right,
Like, my all-time favorite was, there was an accountant, and they were like, they weren't great at interviewing. And yet this is one of the best accountants in the business. Can you just
gosh, I know. Yeah, and that leads me to the next question, because it's talking about finding the right fit. So you
Right.
have culturally, you're trying to find the right fit. You've got really good resumes on paper. They're great. They have good experience, certifications, all that, but when it comes to finding the right fit, and your company culture, and you're trying to like really pick the right person, obviously they have to come across with the right personality and the right demeanor, and you might get a red flag or two through that conversation. So, how do you balance finding that right fit, for your company's culture, and trying not to like from a bias and the ethical side, how do
Right.
you what would you suggest companies do in those situations?
So number one is because you mentioned the red flags, and I'm glad that you did. If you get a red flag, stop the process there. They're done. Because I
Right.
promise you, if you find it there, it will pop up later. I cannot tell you again
Yeah.
how many times I have said to somebody, I saw this red flag, you don't want this person, and they hire them and it blows up in their faces.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
told you
told
so.
you
I
not
told you
to.
so.
Yeah, I told you. And I am that person. I will tell
Right.
you I told you so.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
so bluntly. Um, so first of all, cut that off. Um, Cultural fit is something that I think is very overrated. And let me explain what I mean by that. You want to find someone who is going to take your company to the next level, who's going to help you be successful, right? Who is going to collaborate with your team, whatever that means. So, whatever you need them to do, right? That's what matters. You don't need the same thing that you already have. And that's where that bias comes in. So people will think, oh, I've got this person and they're really good, so I need 9 more of them. No, you don't. I'm about the best in the business, and you don't want 9 more of me on a team. Like, and that's
Right.
not self-deprecation. It's just true. You need people with different styles, different ways of doing things. So what I tell people is number one, don't look for a copy of what you've already got. Look for something else. What else does this person have, right? What different thing can they bring in that will fit into this puzzle? So think of it, in fact, think of it like that. Think of it like a puzzle. Every piece is shaped differently, and then they make the whole awesome, right? So you don't want this exact piece because it's not going to fit over here, right? So look for something different and focus on the objective criteria first, right? Here are the things that we need done. Can they do that? Look for those red flags because you will get them.
Yep.
You will get them, especially when you get somebody like an HR and recruiting that has really honed that instinct. They will know. And then past that, look for something different. What is this person going to bring that nobody else has?
Yeah.
And so asking those kinds of questions about like, what excites you the most about your work? And, if you could do any project in this field, what would it be? That kind of stuff that really gets to know that human.
Right.
That's how you find that different. And you go, that one. Because people say these things to me, oh, I need somebody who's collaborative. Yeah, most people will collaborate. I need somebody with good communication skills. Everybody can read and write. Like, stop.
Right.
What do
Right.
you
Yeah.
like? And no human communicates the same way as another one. So just drop that. So, look for that different thing. Look for that thing that you go, that magic. That's what I need. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my final question. What is your favorite question to ask when you're being interviewed by the company?
Mm.
And then what is your favorite question to ask a candidate?
Mm.
Maybe you've already mentioned it because you said just a couple. Or
No,
maybe you already
no,
said it,
no.
but
You're fine. You're fine. My favorite question to ask a company is, what does integrity look like to you? And second part of that is, how do you live your missions or your values every day? Here are the values it says on your website. How do you live those every single day in your company? What does that look like? Because the values tells you a lot. Like, did they just slap that up there because that sounded good? Or are they actually
right.
doing things to make sure that they're aligning with those values? So ask that question.
Love it.
And I like to be challenged as an interviewer. And I mean, that's what a great candidate will do for me, is they will challenge me for certain types of roles. Like, I'll say something and get that I think will get an argumentative type response, right? And I want to see what they're doing, what they do with it. And I don't say anything rude, right? Just something that they can
Right.
have a contrary opinion to.
Yeah.
And I want to see them engage and I want to see how they push back, right? And so that's the thing that I like to receive. And I've spoken to a lot of interviewers who feel the same way. They want to see someone who's not just that yes person, who will be polite and collaborative about it and, won't make them feel dumb, but that will still say, hey, actually, this is another way that we could do it, right? Like, here's this other thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a question I like to receive and to ask my candidates. I just like to say, when I kind of start off and I kind of go through my whole, I told you I do the whole spiel right at the beginning. I tell them
Yep.
all the different things.
Yep.
I say, tell me what you're looking for in your next role. It's my first question, because that tells you more than almost any other question you're going to ask. It tells you their mindset, their personal missions, the things that you need to be aware of on your end when you think about this. So that's what I like to ask them.
Yeah. I love it. Those are great. There's so many fun questions to ask in interviews, and I'm always curious what, like, that first question or a couple of questions. I generally try to ask, what's your biggest accomplishment?
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's one that comes to mind because I like to hear like what someone had to deal with. If it was like, well, we went through a whole revamp of our systems and integrated this and that, and I came up with this project and we finished it in 10 months and it was like the best thing in the last 20 years at our company. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty
That's
good
pretty
accomplishment,
cool. Yeah. I love to
Or-
ask about accomplishments. I do. Oh, two questions to avoid, one funny, one serious. Don't ask what's your biggest flaw. First of all, nobody's going to
Oh,
tell you the truth. They're going to backhand
yeah.
compliment themselves
Yep.
all day long. Um,
Horrible question.
instead ask, what should we know about working with you? That's a good thing. Because one thing I do is I tattle on myself and I go, I am criminally efficient. And that sounds like I'm backhand complimenting myself, but what I'm telling you is I can actually be working so fast that I fly past people. So I accommodate myself by setting reminders that say, check in with your team, make sure you're still going the same pace, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I said, so just be aware that you will get random questions like, hey, this is where I'm at. Where are you on this? Like, so that we're staying in alignment. And some people like that, some people don't. And I also have unwavering integrity. And I tell people my integrity is not for sale. So if you're looking for someone who will bend their ethics, I'm not it. Um, and I'm very flexible and I will find solutions for you left and right. Even if you're doing something without integrity, I will find you a solution to fix the problem, but don't expect me to bend my integrity. And then a funny question that please don't ask, and I've seen this asked twice in interviews. Don't ask people idiotic questions like, would you rather be in the Navy or a pirate?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And let me
What about?
now hold on. Unless you're working for like a Ren Fair, or something like that. If you're hiring for Ren Fair, you can ask questions like that, okay? But otherwise,
What about
no.
like if you were an animal, what would you be? Do you like that question?
No,
No, me neither.
no. It makes me very irritated.
I almost am like, why are you asking me that? Like, what value am I going to give you to say, oh, I'm like a cheetah, or like I'm,
Yeah, what is it even? And there could be a million different reasons they could answer that. Like, P.S. why I do not like those personality tests. I'm like, first of all, I've broken most of them, like, because my brain apparently just works so differently that I literally most of the time will get the response that goes, that can't be correct. You need to take this again. And I'm like, but like, I did my best. But a lot of the questions in it are not designed for people who think non-typically, right? It's like, so it's designed for typical humans and how a typical brain works. But if you do not think typically, again, you'll break it, right? So I always tell people, like, don't ask those kinds of questions. And don't, if you're looking for certain characteristics, if you're looking for, like, check references, and like, especially like LinkedIn recommendations, stuff like that. Talk to them and get to know them, that kind of thing. But don't ask those kind of silly questions. It's insulting and it's irritating. And it serves no purpose, right? Don't ask things that don't matter.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So leaving with people, hopefully understanding more how to make their recruiting process better, more ethical, more consistent. Is there anything else that you'd give people from an, advice from a suggestion standpoint, just as you're going into the summer, People are getting out of college. People are trying to find their first job. What what
Good luck.
advice? Good luck.
No, in all sincerity, a couple of pieces of advice, and one of them is going to sound counterintuitive, but I promise that it works. And that one is target the jobs that most interest you and target them specifically and target them hard. And I'm not saying don't apply to anything else, but what I'm saying is pick a few that you're just really super excited about and try to get connections on LinkedIn. Do apply the regular route. Go to anything networking if they're local to you where you can get in. If they're local to you, walk in the door and ask for that job. Seriously.
Yeah.
Most companies, the HR is on site if they have an on-site presence. So go in and ask for HR and just walk back there and go talk to somebody. Or ask to a manager or ask to speak to a manager, whatever. But find those few and target them hard, even if it's virtually. Like I said, get on LinkedIn and things like that.
Yeah.
If you really want to stand out as a company or as a candidate, podcast. Be on podcasts, talking about yourself, talking about your mission, whether it's, again, organization or human, right? Talk about what makes you special. Be out there. Let people see you. Plus, when you're applying to jobs and you can send links to podcasts that you've been on, like, hey, you want to see how good I am at this? Bam, here you go.
Bam.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And then even on the company side, if you're on podcasts where your candidates would be paying attention, right? They're going to come to you. Talk about your company, talk about the cool things. And by the way, we're hiring, man, we'd love to have you. Come check us out at blah, 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 blah. Right? It works. I know because I do this all the time and I have my clients do this. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's such an interesting piece of the workforce right now, trying to hire people and really retain them. I had one more question and it slipped my mind. But shoot, what was it?
It's okay.
This is what happens.
It happens.
It
it's all
wasn't
that
written
bourbon
down.
you got
I'm
behind
like,
you.
oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
here it is. Sending a thank you email or a handwritten thank you card. When you talk about standing out, like I probably do 6 or 7 phone interviews and I get maybe one person to send me an email like, hey, it was great talking to you. I enjoyed our conversation.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed hearing about the company. It sounds like it would be a great fit for me. I look forward to hearing from you. If I get one of those emails, I send it to the hiring manager. I'm like, look, this is what this one person out of
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like
it will be one. Like
Yeah.
it will be one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never get handwritten cards in the mail. I try to tell people, you want to stand out, take a thank you card stack from the grocery store or whatever, and get ready to write thank you cards and send them in the mail to somebody. Like,
now, I will say if it's a remote company, that would be more complicated because people don't always want to give out their home address, right? But at the very least, I'm with you on the email. Now, I will give this caveat, and because now I'm with you, right? And I'm all about that thank you. And if somebody sends me that, they do get pushed to the top of the pile. Everybody will know about it.
Right.
Not everybody's like that. Some people, their responses just get ghosted. They get treated like they never sent anything, which is awful. And companies, shame on you for that. Respond to those emails. Say thank you. We'll be in touch soon. Respond. Let them know that you got that. It's never polite to just ghost somebody ever on either side. But also e-cards. I do. So to kind of, if this even works for remote, use the e-cards, and you can do them for free, by the way. So send out e-cards to say thank you. Also, if you're trying to get a job and you just want to get the attention of the recruiter to even get the interview, send them an e-card that says, Happy Easter from so-and-so, and from your candidate, and don't make it about the job. Just, hope you're having a great day. Signed, your candidate hopeful. And then your name with a link to your resume at the bottom.
You go.
It works. I had somebody say that they did that a long time ago, and I was like, that is flipping genius. That is so smart. And I've recommended that to other people, and they got traction off of it. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to pull this up. You have a book on Amazon. It's called The Obvious Solution You Never Heard of, Universal Workplace Design. So if you are a fan of Amazon and you are a fan of books and are looking for the
it's a little tiny book. I did not write like a novel on this one. I just wanted to give like the basics and make it kind of like one of my talks, but in print. So it's only like 70 pages. It's not It's not overwhelming.
And it
Yeah,
came
it's
out
like
last summer, right? It came out last summer?
yeah, and it's really it sounds like me talking. So
Yeah,
if you enjoyed this is
there you
kind
go.
of what it is. It's yeah, that's
There
what
you
it is.
go.
It's a lot of fun and it teaches you how to implement universal design to your whole workplace and to your hiring and how to be more effective and more human centric and how to be more flexible and really retain your people. Like you were saying, it's hard to retain talent.
Yeah.
This will
Yeah.
solve your problem.
Yeah, there you go. So if
Yeah.
you are listening or if you're listening on demand in the future, look up this book by Catherine, The Obvious Solution You Never Heard of, and I'm sure it will help you in your current job of hiring. So, Catherine, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. It was really fun to pick your brain and go through those questions and hear your real life situations and allow me to share some of my stories and having some
Fun.
you know, audience engagement is always fun
Yeah,
because those questions I didn't have written down, and so that always makes it even better.
it does. It kind of it lets you know what people really need to know too. So that was
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I wish you all the best. Hopefully, we'll keep in touch and have a great spring, and we'll talk to you real soon, hopefully, and have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Take care. We'll be on again next Monday, and take care, everybody.